Tune is a great introduction to culture war, and I'm not going to go through all the details of it, but I want you to figure it out. But there is a good example here of irony, and the main reason I wanted to show it is because here you have this group of people fighting over liberty with an issue that isn't necessarily related with money, and abortion is an issue where it's really hard to convince someone that they're right or wrong. Um, as you can guess, abortion is a modern culture war issue that you're going to be reading and learning about. So, what do we mean by culture war? We mean there is a deep conflict in people's different opinions on moral and social issues. I like to call these hot button issues. Gay rights, sex ed, decriminalization of drugs, abortion. This is what the culture war is all about. And as you read about, you have these two groups, Orthodox versus progressive. And a really simple way to remember culture war is it's a battle over values. And it's also a battle of how the government should be involved. Should they promote one of these values over another? Something that makes culture war issues very different. No money is ever at stake. It's not about funding, usually. Um, it gets kind of tricky with government support for like Planned Parenthood and you know some issues, but usually money's not at stake. Compromise is nearly impossible, and this type of conflict is much more profound. It's something that is much bigger. So as you've gone over in class, we've talked about how there's two groups. You have Orthodox versus progressive. Orthodox are the idea that morality and rules, traditional rules, are more important than individual self-expression. It's a very socially conservative view. And then on the other end, you have more progressives where here they think that freedom is more important than social traditions. And you have to be careful because you have Democrats and Republicans that go back and forth on each of these issues. You can have Democrats that are orthodox on some issues, and you can have Republicans that are progressive on social issues. So you have to be careful. Just because you're a Democrat doesn't mean you're progressive on culture war issues. Just because you're a Republican doesn't make you an orthodox on culture war issues as well. You're going to be doing an activity today where you look at abortion, same-sex marriage, euthanasia, medical marijuana, and you are going to decide how would a progressive view this topic, how would an orthodox individual view this topic, and you're going to explain your reasoning behind that. The next few slides are data, and I think this data does a really good job of showing how Democrats and Republicans tend to view a lot of these social issues. I'm not going to go through and read and describe all of these sets of data. I want you to be able to look at this, analyze this, and make generalizations. How do Republicans tend to view these issues? How do Democrats tend to view these issues? And if you can do that and remember that, this is good stuff that'll help you on quizzes, tests, and most importantly, the AP exam. Here you have abortion. I'm just going to let it stay here for about 30 seconds before I go to the next slide, and you can always pause this in front of you. That was a quick 30 seconds. Gun rights, another culture war issue, something that has been much bigger in recent years. That's a quick 30 seconds. Remember, you can pause the video. Gay marriage. The last topic I want to go over is the relationship between religion and politics. I was rudely interrupted by the announcements. Craziness. All right, so religion and politics, church and state. When you see the word state, it doesn't necessarily mean a state like Maryland. It means government. The bells got me again. Oh my gosh. All right, so when we look at religion, we are a very religious country compared to a lot of European democracies, and you have to keep in mind that religion institutions are very similar to government institutions. You have leaders, you have rules, you have participation, you have people with different viewpoints, and it's interesting, as we'll look at later in this unit, you'll notice that people that are more into their religion tend to be a little bit more political, or at least participate more. And there's studies that show, because of the similarities between the things you do in religion and the things you do in government, leading to a higher participation rate. Going back to something we've learned earlier in the year, we talked about how the United States has always been this beacon, this place for religious liberty. The Pilgrims, I mean, Maryland, people came to Maryland as Catholics because Maryland was a place that you could practice Catholicism without persecution. And as you should know and will know, the First Amendment is a huge part of religious freedom in our country. Now, getting into some of the politics, liberals and conservatives have both engaged in using the pulpit, church, religion, to help promote political change. In the civil rights movement in the 1950s and 60s, I mean, you have the Reverend Martin Luther King, you have Malcolm X, Nation of Islam. You have different groups using religion to help promote social and policy changes. And then in the 80s and 90s, and especially today, you have a lot of conservative Christian groups, evangelical groups, that have been a real driving force in helping Republicans win at different levels of government, local, state, and national. All right, so let's take a look at the First Amendment. And you need to be able to apply, how does the First Amendment apply to the role of religion in government? And the First Amendment's got a lot of parts to it, but we're focusing on the first couple up here. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion. That's called the Establishment Clause. And then Congress shall make no law prohibiting the free exercise thereof. So government can't establish a national religion. Government cannot make laws preventing the exercise of religion. Now, you're thinking to yourself, there are so many loopholes around this. We have, in God we trust, in the money. You can't go around and marry 500, women. There are limits and there are contradictions. However, we as Americans do have a tremendous amount of freedom when it comes to religion. And that is something that you want to know and understand. As we get into this course, especially when we get into civil liberties, we will look at a lot of court cases that have, made case law and created precedents, in some cases limiting and in some cases expanding our religious freedom. The last thing I want to go over, and I'm going to let you look at the data. This data does a really good job of showing you how liberal Democrats, how conservative Republicans, and how independents, whoever they want to be, view the role of government and religion. Should they be together? Take a few minutes, look at this poll, and you should be able to make a generalization of how each party feels about the role of government and religion. And that's all for me. I hope you